Hey everyone, that was Eruption by the great Eddie Van Halen, coming in at number 2 on Guitar World Magazine's Top 100 Solos of All Time. Hi, I'm Kelly Dean Allen, your resident old fart YouTube guitarist, and I am playing my way through all of them. And I'm almost done. One more honorable mention, and then we'll finish things up at number 1 with the brilliant solo to I Wanna Be Sedated by the Ramones and Dickie Ramone or Dougie Ramone, one of those guys. That could be a lie, actually. We'll see. I'll keep you in suspense. Sorry for the delay getting this one up. It's been a few weeks. Damned eczema has been acting up on my left hand, making it extremely painful and difficult to play lately. I didn't even have to learn this one, as I already knew it, but I just needed to let my fingers heal before I could play it properly. Eruption is one of the very few solos that I actually pretty much knew how to play before starting this project. That and Cliffs of Dover by Eric Johnson. And that's pretty much it. The rest I had to learn as I went along. Eruption and Cliffs of Dover were pretty much part of the inspiration for doing this thing in the first place, to tell the truth. I was looking for a challenge. Now, I'm not going to rehash all the praise and admiration and platitudes I've lavished on Eddie Van Halen over the course of numerous videos throughout this project, coupled with how important he was to my development as a guitar player when I was young, because I've already done that a number of times already. Suffice to say, he was my greatest influence as a young teenage guitar player. He was my guitar god, as it were, as he was to a hell of a lot of other young teenage players back in the late 70s and early 80s. Back in 1978, with the release of Van Halen's debut album, we all know that Eddie Van Halen hit the guitar scene with the force of a hydrogen bomb. Once every generation, a rock and roll guitar player comes along who changes the game. In the 60s, it was Jimi Hendrix. In the early 70s, it was Ritchie Blackmore. In my opinion, he doesn't get close to the level of admiration that he deserves. And heading into the 80s and beyond, it was Eddie Van Halen. Within 10 years of Eddie blasting onto the scene in 1978, others, of course, would take over that mantle as the 80s grew to a close, but Eddie held on to it for a hell of a long time. And this solo was his introduction to the world. They might as well have opened the album with it instead of Running with the Devil. It was that big of a guitar statement to throw down. For the longest time in my teenage years and 20s, this was the benchmark to hit as a guitar soloist. Could you play Eruption? If you couldn't play it, then you had some more practicing to do, brother. Or more often than not, you just said, the hell with it. I'll never be that good. So you just accept defeat and came to the realization that Eddie Van Halen was just on another level and moved on with your life. Eruption was actually Eddie's studio warm-up and live guitar solo predating their first album. There was initially no intention whatsoever of putting it on the album. That was until producer Ted Templeton heard Eddie ripping through it one day in the studio getting warmed up and asked Eddie what the hell it was that he was playing. Eddie explained, of course, and Ted, being the brilliant producer that he was, knew magic when he heard it and insisted that it go on the album. Eddie put down 2 takes of Eruption, and then I suppose they moved on to something else. And despite choosing the better of the 2 takes to go on the album, Eddie later stated that he could have played it better given more time, and that he actually made a mistake in the first part of the solo. Now, don't ask me where that mistake is, as I have no idea. I don't think anybody does. What Eruption is what Eruption is. It must have been one of those good mistakes, as there's certainly no off-putting or wonky notes in there. Only Eddie knows for sure. I actually learned a couple of interesting things about Eruption that I didn't know once I started digging into a bit of research about it. For one thing, it's not all original. The very opening of the solo is pretty much a straight-up copy reworking of the song Let Me Swim by the early 70s rock band Cactus. And it's a song that Van Halen used to cover in back in their club days. Cactus were a band formed in 1970 from a few former members of Vanilla Fudge. Most notably, I suppose, would be famed drummer Carmen Appice, or Carmen Appice. With other members pulled from Ted Nugent's Amboy Dukes and Mitch Ryder's Detroit Wheels, they actually reformed in 2006 and are still together to this day. It's good stuff as far as classic rock goes. You should go listen to Cactus and Let Me Swim, I think it's called. But especially the opening as it relates to Eddie's Eruption. Another thing that I didn't know is that the tremolo picking section was lifted from a classical study, Etude number 2 to be exact, by 18th century French composer Rodolphe Kreutzer. The rest is all Eddie, as far as I know. And of course, then there's the famous two-handed tapping section that finishes up Eruption. Though Eddie gets most of the credit, he was not the first to do this technique. Though I dare say with Eruption, he did it longer and better than anyone previous. As up to that point, guitar players had only really touched upon it. See what I did there? Touched it. He certainly brought it into the mainstream and became very well known for utilizing this technique in much of his playing. The funny thing is, like I said previously, Eddie was without a doubt my greatest influence as a young guitar player, but I absolutely hate two-handed tapping, and I don't hate it because I can't do it, I just don't like it. At the time, I suppose, it was pretty new and cool, but during the 80s, it just got so overdone ad nauseum that I avoided it like the plague in my own playing. I still do, but of course I had to do it here. Even Eddie, I think, overdid it. It just got to be too much. No offense to you two-handed tappers out there, it's just not for me. Call me a purist, but I believe your right hand belongs here, not up here. Regardless, Eruption, of course, went down in history as one of the greatest guitar solos of all time. Go find any list online or elsewhere of the greatest guitar solos of all time, and you're sure to find it in the top 5, if not sitting squarely at number 1. Though this list, done by the editors of Guitar World, have placed it at number 2. A few years back in 2013, Guitar World did a reader's poll of the greatest guitar solos, and Eruption was at number 1. And rightly so, I think. Like I said, it's one of those moments in guitar history that changed the game. There was guitar pyrotechnics before Eruption, and there was guitar pyrotechnics after Eruption, and they sounded nothing alike. Eddie took the game to another level. Of course, others would follow in his wake throughout the 80s and 90s and now, and play faster and more technical, but few, if any, would leave such a mark on guitar history as Eddie Van Halen did with that blistering solo called Eruption that he put down back in '78 on Van Halen's debut album. And that, my friends, is all I've got to say about that one. Now, get off my lawn. We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves. I hope you're well. Subscribe if you haven't already. And we're doing another honorable mention next, and then we're at number 1, and then we're done. So, and then we're off to pastures new. So I've got some ideas. So anyway, take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time. Cheers.